How do you find it being mixed, civil and environmental?
I think it's good. I think you don't really notice the difference, to be honest, because we're all doing the same thing.
At the moment,
and there's always the banter, environmental, civil, it's good. But no, you don't really notice.
At UCL, after like year and a half, when you're there, you decide if you're going to continue on the path that you've come in with, so either the civil engineering route or the environmental engineering. I think they're the both most common ones that people start off with. And then some people then after that might decide actually want to go into geomatics or want to go just into environmental. They can switch. You make your decision then.
Are your year quite close? Like, do you help each other out?
Yeah,
a
we're
lot?
quite close and we're quite collaborative.
Yeah, like you sit and do it together rather than go and take it home.
I do have a group too where we work through problems, and I find it incredibly helpful.
I preferred the way the course is run here, and that I could learn by doing and not just have to sit in a classroom and learn by somebody telling me and taking exams. And it felt, especially with something that I knew I was going to struggle at because I didn't have all the prerequisites, just the atmosphere of having a lot of people around you is much more my style of learning. It's not everybody's, but that's definitely what attracted me to it. Yeah.
Welcome to our introductory series on AutoCAD and structural drafting for civil engineers. This is part of Stellenbosch University's training for students studying civil engineering to learn how to produce drawings, how to do structural drafting, and how to understand buildings such that drawings can be produced, as drawings are such a central part of civil engineering. This first lesson we're going to be covering the basics of AutoCAD. What is a drawing and what should be on it? What is AutoCAD? What is a building? Knowing more than how to draw. A big issue is simply understanding what you are drawing and then using CAD and creating drawings, model space and paper space, CAD commands, then line types and layers, pen settings, setting up a drawing. This is a brief introduction to using title blocks and viewports. Then the basics of dimension styles and layouts. What you're going to be learning here is a basic introduction in this and the upcoming lessons. I would encourage you to go an advanced AutoCAD or whatever software CAD courses you use. But the basics you use here, you can produce at least usable engineering drawings. It's not about, there are often better tools or better skills that you can use within AutoCAD. However, we're just using the straightforward ones. Also, what we're going to be doing today was just general. Many companies will have their own standards, their own specifications, their own requirements, details, pen settings, etc. And even within different disciplines of engineering, you'll have different standards. So you must always remember those things. These aren't hard and fast rules you'll be seeing. These are tools that you can use to create decent drawings. All right, first we must say, what is a drawing? What do I need to produce? I'm just going to go now to a couple of drawings. Oh, it decides to talk to me, my computer. These are some drawings of a certain structure. It was a storage warehouse produced and built in Joburg. And this contains the various information you require to actually build the structure. At the end of the day, what you must remember is a drawing is a written instruction with depictions and figures and details such that someone can construct it. They can build a structure or a mechanical system or whatever it is from the pieces of paper you produce. Generally, and in most cases, a drawing, you must remember, is a legal instruction. It is binding. You produce something and you hand it over to someone, and it should contain the information required for him to do his job. Thus, the information needs to be clear and it needs to be complete. You don't want to give someone half a drawing that he is guessing all the time, and then he might do the wrong things, or it can be interpreted wrongly. Often an issue on sites is that someone didn't understand the drawing, or it wasn't clear, or something was wrong. Often drawings are not properly checked and properly done and properly reviewed. You must remember, if you give something to someone which is incorrect, they will produce the wrong building and it will be your fault. But on a drawing, you need to give him all the information. So it is layouts, details, sections, specifications, schedules, any detail he requires to produce the structure safely. This is a roads drawing, so we'll have layerworks information, stormwater details, steel details, etc. You need to think about what information do I need to put on this drawing such that if I was the contractor, I could build it. If I knew nothing about the structure, would there be sufficient information to build it without even picking up the phone and phoning the engineer or the draftsman? And that is a very important thing and very difficult to get right. Often mistakes are made, or often drawings are not done well, and it takes experience to know what contractors need, and also what can be done wrongly, what can be done simply, and also how you're going to build this thing. How do you produce this in such a way that the contractor or whoever it is can actually build it? And also you must remember that these drawings don't just go to the contractor. They might go to the client, to the council for approval, and all those things. So you need whatever information is required for the different parties to use it. But let's now start to go look at the structure in real life. And this is the inside of the building. This is us during construction, brickwork. This is the completed structure. It's a sheeted, basic little warehouse or store with sheeting and translucent sheeting down the sides, and then some roller shutter doors there, brickwork, etc. This was the building when it was almost finished. This is the view from the one side. The roof slightly slopes from one side to the other for drainage. There's a gutter, downpipes, etc. And this was built about 2 years ago. This is the steel skeleton going up with all the information. So to get to this stage, we had to give them sufficient information. They could look at the drawings and say, okay, this is what I must do. This is how big such and such a thing must be. This is how small, etc., etc. This is the steel sizes and whatnot. What I've also got here is a three-dimensional model of it. This was produced using the software Tekla, and we're going to use this for the different lessons to go in and zoom in and see what do the specific items look like. Because not only are we going to discuss how to draw it, we're going to discuss what is it. What is this purlin, this rafter, this truss, this knee brace, etc., so that you can actually have a better idea of what should you draw and what you're drawing and what you need to put there for the structure to stand up. All right, but we'll come back to this model. This viewing software can be obtained free of charge. It's BIM Site Viewer. We, however, are going to be producing two-dimensional drawings. The original drawings for that job were actually done in 3D, and then from the 3D, 2D drawings were produced, but we're just going to go straight into 2D. Now, we're in AutoCAD now. This is AutoCAD Lite 2013. The Lite basically means it's more for the just two-dimensional drawings. The Lite is more than sufficient for most engineers, except if you've got add-ons and other software. When you start up AutoCAD, you'll see this kind of interface. If your interface looks different, you might be in the classic view. This is the classic view. This is what I learned to draw on, where it's got different sort of setups and toolbars rather than the sort of modern Microsoft type looking setup with ribbons at the top. So I'm going to use the newer view and newer setup of AutoCAD. I'm less familiar with it, but I think this is the way AutoCAD is going, so I'd say it's useful to use it as it's shown now. When you start this, you generally, I'm just going to start a new drawing just to show you what it might look like. You go File, New, and you often start out with a template or whatever you're using, and then you're in a sort of infinite black space now. But we're going to start with a drawing, and we'll come back to templates and all the likes. Here we are in a drawing. Where we are now is called Model Space. You'll see this tab on the bottom left where it says Model. This is an infinite canvas. It goes on every direction for infinity, and you can draw something 1,000,000 units long, and it can go off for 1,000,000 units or 1 unit long. What you draw here needs to correspond, though, to whatever units you are using, and that must be set up when you start the drawing, whether 1 unit is 1 inch, 1 unit is 1 kilometer, 1 unit is 1 millimeter. We are doing everything here in normal sort of standard metric units with 1 unit equals 1 millimeter. So that is 7 meters, that dimension you're looking at right now. So make sure very careful that your units match before you start. That 1 unit is 1 millimeter. Though this is model space, as I said, it goes off in every direction for infinity. But if you want to look into the space and create a drawing, which you can print or PDF or whatever you want to do with it, you need to go into paper space. These tabs are for paper space, and I've set it up that this is the name of the drawing. It's Foundation F01, my first foundation drawing. And this is now a piece of paper. You're looking at an A1 drawing with windows into model space. So from model, you set up a window around. So I will see what's in that box right now. But you create those windows from paper space. So if you go into paper space, you look now through these windows. And what you must be careful of is even though you draw at 1 and 1 in model space, all your dimensions, your stars, etc. must match the scale you use in paper space. For instance, I have here a 1 in 100 foundation layout, a section of 1 in 50, a detail of 1 in 25. But if you look at the text, the 1 in 100, 1 in 50, 1 in 25, the text is all the same size. Although in model space, you'll see the text for 1 in 100 much bigger than a 1 in 50, which is bigger than a 25. And those are standards, which we'll get to just now, that you can use to set it up such that whatever scale you have, they all match each other, and it produces a drawing that is clear, that is easy to understand, and it makes sense. You don't have sort of numbers all over the show, and it also means you don't have to change things each time, because when you create it, it's so small, so big, you can't read it. If we want to now go into a viewport, this viewport here, I'll click on it. It is now inactive until it's sort of got a thick line around the side. It is locked. If you look in the bottom right corner there, it says lock, unlock viewport. If I click on unlock, now it means it's unlocked. It means I can change the scale. So if I double click within this window, you'll see the line around the outside of my viewport goes thick. I can now change. I can zoom in and out and go make my window focus on whatever I want within this space. And I zoom in now. If I want to create a specific view, a specific scale, and I'm going to do this again because everyone always confuses this, I'll do this in the future lessons. If I zoom in, I want to create a 1 in 50 scale now. I zoom out, zoom in, I get roughly the section where I want it to be. Now I type Z, zoom, enter, S, scale, enter, 1/50 XP, enter, and it will create a scale for me. I'm going to lock this up. Alright, what I've been doing now was in the command window. And we're going to have a look right now at the command and the ribbons at the top. But before we finish that, let's just finish up with looking at viewports. So viewports are windows into your model space. And normally with a drawing, you want to set it up at the beginning such that your viewports are there. You know what you're going to put on the drawing, so you know what scale they have to be. For instance, if I drew this and it didn't fit on the page in 1 in 100, maybe I'd have to make it 1 in 150 or 1 in 200. So before you start drawing, set up your piece of paper, set up some viewports, check what scales you can use, and then you can get an idea. But let's go back into model space. Now we have an idea of what model and paper space are. Let's have a look at AutoCAD commands. What are these commands? How do I start drawing lines, creating tools? In the next lessons, we'll get on to actually drawing stuff. But for now, we're just going to see where do you find the tools. If you look at the top, you've got various ribbons: home, insert, annotate, layout, parametrics, view, etc., etc. And within those ribbons are the majority of the tools you'll need. You can draw lines, polylines, circles. In the modifier, you can move things, rotate them, etc. If you click on the names like draw, you'll see there are other drawing tools, other modification tools. Layers are very important. We're going to look at in a few minutes. Dimensions, creating blocks, sorting out properties, etc. So at the top are the majority of the tools you'll need. I encourage you to take these and just try them out. Play with the tools and get a feel for what each tool does, each layout does. If you want to find more information out, you put your cursor over something, and initially you'll see it gives you information, and then it expands to show you even more information. So often you can get explanations about how to use a specific tool or instrument just by holding your cursor over it. So that's a very good way to learn to use the basics of AutoCAD. Then, if you want to use command lines the way AutoCAD used to use more, but it's still a very, very useful tool, and especially faster draftsmen like using the command bar, this sort of bar at the bottom here. If I want to draw a line, let's say, from the ribbon, I'll just click a line and I'll draw it. Press escape to stop using it. But I can also start creating a line from my command prompt. I type L for line, and you can see at the side there are other things that come up. If you look on the right, L, layer, etc. Type L for line, press enter. Now it starts a line command, and I can draw a line from the command prompt or the ribbons at the top. So that's different ways. And this command prompt is very useful. As you're drawing, it'll often give you options of what you draw. For instance, I click polyline, and I start drawing my polyline. At the bottom of the screen now, it gives me different options. It says P-line, specify next point, or arc, half width, length, undo width, etc. So what you can do is you can type in different things as you go to modify the tools you're using. For instance, I draw a circle, I click, and I can start drawing it. If I type in now a command or a length at the bottom, I type in 500, it'll give me a circle with a radius of 500. But let's say I do it again. I want a diameter of 500. I click again, and instead I type D for diameter, enter, and 500. Now I've got a circle with a diameter of 500. So you can use the command prompt as you go, because it gives you different options of how to modify whatever tool you're using. Alright, now so that's the ribbons we've covered, the command line. Then at the bottom we've had a look at the model space, the paper space, and then also there's various tools down the bottom here. Those are for scales, those are for tools. You can adjust scales you're drafting. Be very careful of adjusting scales within model space. I'd encourage you just for now, for simplicity, draw everything at 1 and 1, adjust your dimension tools, and just get along that way. You can, though, in model space, draw things at 1 in 100 next to a 1 in 1 next to a 1 in 50, and they will all come out looking as if you had produced it in Paperspace, but just be very careful of that. And then there are various other tools, annotation styles, etc. AutoCAD has a lot of new features with annotation styles, etc., and showing and hiding things, but we'll get to those. Well, a lot of those we won't use. We're just going to use the basics for now. All right, so that's the basic interface we've looked at. We've looked at the ribbons, the command prompt, the tabs, and some of the tools at the bottom here. You can play with these. Now, I just actually clicked on model, and it then moved me from model to Paperspace. If I clicked on paper, it'll open the Paperspace. So if I'm in my Paperspace, and I click on a window and I click paper, now I'm in model space again. Alright, from model space, now we want to start having a look at the settings, for instance, for dimensions. I have a drawing here, and it is a 1 in 100. So normally what you do is you make sure your 1 in 100 you use from here. You can see they get smaller and bigger, 1 in 1. And those are stored here in your annotate. 1 in 100, 1 in 1, 1 in 5, 1 in 20. So set up some styles or use standard styles to make it all match. But we're going to use and learn more about the dimension styles when we actually start doing the drawing. The final thing we're going to go on to now is just layers and colors and such. As you see in front of you, everything is very colorful. There's different colors, different styles, etc. But when your contractor gets the drawing, he gets black and white. It only shows black lines. But to make a drawing clear, you have thick lines and you have thin lines. For instance, I've zoomed in on this drawing. You'll see some lines are thinner, some lines are thicker. And by using different line thicknesses, you can produce a drawing which becomes clear. And you do that by using certain colors and mapping those colors to a thickness. Because in AutoCAD, what you do is you set up something called a CTB file, and that pen setting style maps a certain color to a line thickness. For instance, these are the colors for the specific CTB file we're going to be using now. And each company, though, or each discipline will often have their own CTB file. So just be careful. My red might be thin, but for someone else, red might be thick. So just be careful when you're using details and drawings from one person's drawing or for someone else's drawing. Okay, here I've got red is thin. It's 0.18 millimeters thick. Green is a bit thicker at 0.4 millimeters thick. Cyan, 0.5. And it could even go up to 1 millimeter, 2 millimeters, whatever. Magenta is thicker. Cyan's a bit thicker, etc. So you've got these different pen settings that are different styles, and you use them then in your drawing to ultimately map to something that looks like, I'm just going to go to my pen settings like this. So you'll see when I create a drawing or PDF from what we were looking at, you see red is just comes out black, and yellow and all these colors come out black, but with different thicknesses. And you can use those thicknesses then to emphasize or not emphasize certain things. If you want, you can even make them come out in color. These days, with the way plotters are going, it's more and more common to see color drawings, and color drawings can often be very clear because you can show different things. But just be careful, certain colors don't plot well, like yellow, and also color plots are very much more expensive. But mechanical engineers use colors a lot for the different levels and styles, architects a lot for layouts and such, and civil and structural engineers are starting to use it more. But now, at the end of the day, you need to know what color will give you such and such a thickness, and normally that just comes by experience or copying other drawings. So you'll see in this drawing, got thin red lines, slightly thicker yellow lines, much thicker cyan lines, thin grey lines, and those at the end of the day will give me something I can use so that the contractor will understand what I've done. Alright, and that's a basic introduction to this. Just one thing I forgot now with those layers and colors. I'm going to go back into model space. Those layers are set here. So if I go to something, I click on it. This corresponds to, for instance, brickwork. BWK, if I'm looking in my layer state here, I've got a list of all sorts of different layers. And those layers, each layer has a color and a style, and then that color obviously is associated with something. And you can also associate the layer with a particular type of line. You'll see this is a dashed line. If I go and open my layer properties here, I'm going to do that again. I'm going to click, see there's a little layer properties, click on layer properties, and it opens this window. This gives me a list of all the different layers I've got. You'll see I've got different layers from all sorts of people. I've got architects' layers here and all sorts of things from copying on their details to this drawing. But for instance, I'm going to go to my brickwork layer. There's my brickwork. It's a green line, so it's medium thick, and it's a continuous line. Line weight thickness is just default, and it's currently shown. It's shown there. You use these tools. We'll discuss those a bit later to show how you can turn on and turn off things. It plots, etc. And you can even change your line styles here. For instance, here we go. This is my grids. My grids are my grid lines. It's got a specific line type, and you can change your line type to dashed or dotted or continuous or zigzags or whatever it is. You can load more styles into it, and from these line type styles you can create different dash, dot styles, etc. One useful thing about layers is, firstly, you know what this is. This is a saw cut joint. It has a standard so that you know everything on such and such a layer will then print in a certain thickness with a certain style. Or also when you're drawing, let's say now I want to edit only the brickwork, let's say. So I click on my brickwork and I can isolate this layer. So I click my isolate button at the top, and now it sort of turns everything off. And if I select, only the brickwork will be selected. So that's a way you can make sure that only the brickwork is done. I just deleted all the brickwork. Let me put it back. And that is a useful way that you don't edit stuff you shouldn't. And that's with isolating and unisolating layers. So layers are a very powerful tool, and a good draftsman will use them properly. For instance, my dimensions are the dim layer. I normally set dim layer as constant, and I draw in that dimension layer, and then I just match properties to get to the style I'm required. So if I draw a new line next to this, I can then match properties, MA, enter, and match, or I can go to draw my line, and then I'm going to click here, match properties, click on match properties. I click on the properties I want, click on my line, and it will match the properties. But we'll use match properties and all these tools a lot when we start drawing. Alright, so that's our introduction. That's a basic introduction to AutoCAD and what we're about to draw. So we're going to go through and take this building now to a stage where we can issue drawings to a contractor and he can build it. Alright, thank you very much for attention. What I encourage you though is to, with this, go and play with the tools, run through it, see what I've done, use the different tools, zoom in and out, create viewports, do all sorts of things, and from that you can start getting a feel for AutoCAD. Alright, chat to you soon.